listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Julia Griffin. To master a higher frequency for a new state of mind. Once you walked in a forest of splendor in which everything you did and everything you thought was aligned. It is possible at this time to begin to return to the old knowledge. Intuitive healer and manifester Julia Griffin is here to talk about this unique time in history when all sentient beings, animals, plants, trees, and the earth are intent on creating this change. The wolves awakened her to the most incredible light, which opened gifts and brought knowledge that she longs to share. You are creators, and you are born to be creators of beauty, possibility, and joy. Join Julia on a journey into a beautiful and magical world where amazing possibilities exist. Let us help open the door. The Power of Inspiration and Awakening with Julia Griffin starts right now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Julia Griffin, and you're listening to The Power of Inspiration and Awakening on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour, and let us help you experience a higher vibration in a new state of mind. For those of you who are not familiar with me, I awakened with wolves. When I met a real wolf, it talked to me just like I'm talking now, could hear it, and they taught me to read the energy of the heart. From this, I learned to intuitively hear plants, animals, and people, and I became an intuitive and a writer as a result. So our guest today, Dee Davidson, is going to talk to us about plants, specifically trees and forest bathing, and how our connection with the earth can help all of us. So Dee Davidson has worked as a creative writing, piano, and elementary school teacher, and she's the author of a number of children's books, including Wind, which won the Nautilus Award, and The Miracle Forest. Deeply inspired by the beauty of the forest, Ellen's books are full of the magic and wonder of nature. She is a member of Tree Sisters, Awakening Women, and the Earth Treasure Healing Project, and she lives in California. So welcome, Ellen.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
Okay, so the title of your book is Sacred Forest Bathing, and for people who aren't familiar with that, tell us what that is and how you became involved with it.
When I first began my forest bathing odyssey, I had never heard the term, and that was 17 years ago. It's taken from the Japanese term Shinrin-yoku, which translates to forest bathing, and they've been studying how there are so many healing properties that happen to people who spend time in forests and around trees. The reason I called it sacred forest bathing is because of the potential expansion of consciousness, intuition, instinct, creativity, and telepathic communication that is our human potential and happens when we make ourselves available.
In nature.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had the same experience. I hear everything. So it didn't surprise me when you were talking about hearing about the voices of the trees. And I know at one point you were saying that you started identifying them as male and female. And I had a really interesting thing in the fall when I was looking at this beautiful maple tree. And I said, thank you, because of all the color. It was looking over the mountains and it was amazing. And the tree said, we have two different sexes, and I happen to be a male tree. And I thought, well, thank you for sharing that with me. And the person I was with had majored in studying trees. And I said, do maples have two sexes? And he said, acers, absolutely. He said, that tree you were just looking at, that's a male tree. I thought, well, that's pretty cool.
Wow, that is awesome. I love it.
So I got that answer. And if you read her book, it is just very, very deep in fabric. It goes from mythology to fact to science and then back to this dreamy, beautiful vision with the trees. If you like nature, it is definitely a book to read. And I want to give you a quote from the book here. She describes it as enchanted by the lush green beauty and deep hush found in the redwood forest. Ellen has spent much of her time over the last 17 years meditating beneath a few ancient trees. To her surprise, she discovered they have different personalities and communicate with her in sensation, image, and wordless knowing. Sometimes she swears she can hear their creaky voices whispering in her mind, and I'm sure you do, particularly from some of the passages in your book.
It's wonderful to talk to someone that's also had that experience. When it first began happening to me, it was so beyond the realm of what I thought was possible that I couldn't believe it was happening.
Yes, I understand because wolves talk to me, which I didn't know that they could do, even at
Right.
home when I was miles away from them.
Yeah.
So all of nature is really talking, and for people who haven't experienced this but want to, you hear it through your heart. It's about getting quiet enough to open up your heart, at which point everything is talking.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
it's all connected, and it wants you to connect, and it really wants healing for the earth. That would be something I would say that all of nature wants right now. So I have here, I know that you overcame like an immune disorder by forest bathing.
Mm-hmm. Much to my surprise, I was suffering after my first daughter was born. She was colicky and wouldn't let me sleep at all. And by the time she was calmed down and sleeping, I had lost the ability. I forgot how to sleep. And that cascaded into a whole bunch of symptoms. Fibromyalgia. I was exhausted all the time. I got every virus that came down the pike. I became chemically sensitive and I tried everything. And things helped. I juiced. I went to hypnotherapy. I did acupuncture and you name it, but nothing worked. And I had finally just accepted that I would have to make the best of my life impaired. And then I was doing a lot of Tibetan Buddhist Vajrayana meditation, and the Lama suggested that we follow the juice. And I figured he meant what really gave us joy and vital life force energy in our hearts. So on free days, I started playing a game with myself and asking, what do I want to do today? And every day it was go to the forest. And I live close to ancient redwood forests, so I started doing that. I had no expectations of healing. I'd given up. And bit by bit, I started noticing, oh, I'm sleeping. Oh, I can turn my neck. Oh, the diesel that just went by didn't give me a headache that lasted 3 days. And now I'm 71. I feel great. I've never felt better. I'm so, and it's this beautiful vital energy that is just filling me in the forest. And I agree with Julia. I think all of nature is reaching out to us, wanting to connect and guide us in healing ourselves and restoring our home planet.
And getting this back anchored to the earth, because I've noticed with healing and clients that people tend not to be anchored to the earth anymore. It's almost like they're floating right above it. And if you go down into that vibration, you get a lot of vital physical energy.
Mm-hmm.
So that is part of it. The other thing that I've noticed from personal work is that the earth wants to help us manifest good things. The earth wants us to have energy and health, and it would love it if everybody could talk to it.
Mm-hmm. And there's just a lot of ways we're being reached out to. The whales are trying to get our attention big time right now. A lot of the bird bird birds, different birds are coming to people. And if we just make ourselves available by getting quiet, as Julia said, and paying attention, there's this whole magical, beautiful, enchanting world that opens up and makes life wonderful the way a lot of people experienced as young children.
The wonder comes back.
Hmm. And awe.
Yeah. And I noticed in your book how you had discoveries or thoughts, and then like 10 or 15 years later, they were, science agrees with you.
Absolutely. And that's still continuing. It's ongoing. I And I was pretty invalidating. My dad was a mathematician, and I grew up with science as God. And if science couldn't prove it, it didn't exist. And so I was having all these experiences and just figured, well, I'm imaginative. This is cool, but it's not real. And then bit by bit, it started being proven, such as the fact that trees do communicate with each other. That's known science now. And
The mushrooms, you had a realization about mushrooms before they figured out how mycelium connected everything.
Well, I have this 33 years ago when I first moved into this house. There's an old growth redwood bordering my backyard. And that tree started coming to me many times a week in my dreams and was teaching me. And one of the things it was teaching me about was the relationship with mushrooms. And I, at that point, was so far away from believing a tree could be sentient or somehow communicate with me that I got my dream journals out and I analyzed it. Oh, the tree represents the part of me that is, and that wasn't what was happening. I was actually being taught, and I still am. That tree still comes to me.
Yeah. And so for people who are listening, pay attention to your intuitions because you may be more right than you think you are. When you were talking about the whales, I know that the wolves told me that the coyotes, the dolphins, the whales, all sing a song of creation on the full moon. And it's one of the things that keeps the planet going right now, despite all the pollution and crazy things. Like they wrap the entire world in sound.
That's so fascinating and so in sync because I feel like the redwood trees and the whales are very much working together to keep a bioelectric, energetic harmony
Well, of
and
course,
flow on the
they're old
planet.
enough and big enough to pick up on it.
Yeah.
I always thought of, we don't have redwoods here in Georgia. I always thought of the huge oaks, the ones that would like fill a room. I always thought of those as guardian trees. Like they acted as guardians and pulled down the energy. And I suspect that that's true.
Hmm. Um, Western cultures, most of Western cultures and most indigenous cultures have made big decisions outside next to what were called council trees. And in thinking about that, I realize it's quite subtle, but the quality of my thoughts, ideas, inspirations, and creative, you know, ideas are just subtly different when I'm outside in the presence of a tree or a forest than home in front of a computer.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I do that when I'm stressed. I go work in the garden, which has trees right by it.
Yeah.
It's like the worries or whatever the problem is, it seems to transcend itself while I'm doing that. Like the earth takes it and does something to it.
Hmm. And I think the earth is always working with our fields, and our bodies are so intelligent. But as Julia pointed out, we tend to be a little above the earth and a little above out of our bodies. But we have access to so much wisdom and knowing that our bodies and our energy fields are picking up. And a lot of being able to receive that is slowing down.
Hmm. And you definitely slow down if you're outside for an hour without shoes on.
Hmm.
Your whole body changes in that time. So there was one thing I was thinking about is I actually knew someone who took from Japan who her whole job and her whole life was taking care of this really ancient tree off the coast of Japan. And she came to the United States to talk about it. And she was such a beautiful person. And I thought, oh, the tree did that to her.
Yeah, I know. I do think I've evolved into a different person than I would have if I hadn't immersed myself in the forest field.
Definitely. So tell us about redwoods since we don't have them here.
Well, they're really old. The ones around here can be 2 or sometimes even 3,000 years old. The forests have been here for millions of years when the dinosaurs were romping around. And so being in a place that is so intact and whole, and the trees are huge, like a 7-story building, and 8 people holding hands can wrap around a trunk. So they're huge, they're old, and there's a vibration. And when you enter a forest, pretty much any forest, but especially the redwoods, there's this deep hush. And that actually is science too, because it turns out that the lichen and the mosses and substances in the bark, like suberin, absorb and muffle sound. So it feels like walking into a holy cathedral, a
A
living
sanctuary.
cathedral. Yeah.
Yeah.
And and there's the sound of running water and birds and the rustlings of the fronds in the breeze. And it's hard to even describe how alive and aware and magical it feels, especially if I go someplace that nobody's walked through for a while, a week or two maybe. And so I'm on a back trail that's not well traveled. There's a palpable numinous energy that builds up. I actually feel like I'm walking through a substance, almost like being bathed, another element. It's not water, it's not air, it's something in between. And as I do, it feels like my entire aura is effortlessly cleared off.
Hmm. Yeah, because no one has been there. I know when I was a child, I grew up on a big farm, and let's just say it's been ruined compared to what it was, but there was a swamp area that was so wild and so crazy, and sometimes I would get lost. And I learned if I made sounds like, "Mm, mm," and I kept making sounds that one of the trees would pick up on it. And so I could go to that tree. And then I would make different sounds until another tree picked up on me, and that would lead me out of the swamp.
That's amazing. I love it.
But I mean, that was just because I was a child. You know what I'm saying? It probably wouldn't have occurred to me as an adult.
Well, most of us are a lot more open as children and say things to our parents like, oh, the wind told me. And then our parents say, that's nonsense. The wind doesn't talk. And we shut it down.
Well, my father was a farmer, so the wind and the sun and the trees and the birds were always talking to us.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, it always meant something. It was never just anything. It would be the sky is saying, or the trees are telling us. You know, like when trees will blow up in the south right before a storm, they turn their tops up. So if they were turning their tops up, we knew they were attracting the storm.
That's beautiful. And probably that childhood is partly what opened you up to be able to hear the wolves.
Because I had to hear things. I mean, nowadays, no one would let their child just run wild on a farm like I did through the woods. But it made me very open because I had to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's quicksand, there are alligators, there's snakes. You have to step in the right place.
Mm.
That's what I mean. No one would let their children do it anymore. But I'm glad I got to.
Yeah.
So, a really interesting thing is to me, I'm looking at my notes here, is that the forest accelerates healing. So they've proven that now.
Mm-hmm. The Japanese have proven that even 1 to 2 days spent in a forest and mindfully, not listening to your Walkman or talking to your friends, but quietly in the forest, really opening senses and paying attention to what you see and taste and feel and hear. Doing that for even a day or two has beneficial effects that last for a month, including speeding wound healing, helping children with ADHD, relieving anxiety and depression, better sleep, lowering blood pressure and cortisol, and boosting immune system. They can measure more T cells that fight things like cancer. So it's incredibly beneficial.
So much more fun than going to the doctor.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who are looking for a different kind of healing, that might be a way to start. Now, another interesting thing, and I want to get into your friend David a little later, but you and he made some discoveries about the energy field in trees.
Yeah, David's been an amazing guide. He sort of plucked me out of the forest. He had a near-death experience and was sent back on a mission to uh, clone the ancient champion trees and put them in living tree libraries to preserve their hardy genetics. And it has been scientifically proven now, not when he began, but now scientists know that the old trees are better at withstanding fire and pests and droughts and all
Oh,
kinds of
interesting.
things. Right. So the angels guided him on that. And they said, he told me they guided him on connecting with me. So we've had this connection, and I've met up with him and all kinds of different people from around the world when people have come to take cuttings from the tops of these over 300 feet trees of the little sun needles, because those are the ones that can grow in the cloning solutions. Most recently, they did a planting with kids. They have a tree school, and they did a planting of a sequoias in Detroit.
Oh,
And it's
wow.
great because when David began this, nobody knew why do you even need to do this? We've already got the trees. The tree that they were planting clones of burned down in a California fire. So,
So it goes on as it should. I
yeah,
was curious, have you seen the angel oak in South Carolina near Charleston?
I haven't.
That one is supposedly a magic tree. For hundreds of years, people have gone there to have their prayers answered. They used to put their prayers in blue bottles and hang them on the trees, but you can't do that now, so you just go there and pray. But
Mm.
supposedly the angel oak answers prayers. You can see it online. It's a beautiful tree.
That's a beautiful story too. What I have experienced, and David also confirms, is the trees do act like antennas, and they facilitate communication between basically heaven and earth. So they're great connectors of domains, of realms.
And I know too, if you can't get in touch with someone, you can climb a tree and think about them and imagine sending them a message. They'll almost always get it.
It's really incredible.
Because you're up and the tree is grounding you, but it's sending it through the air for you.
And I'm really sensitive, and I'm pretty receptive. I'm a good receiver, but I'm not a good broadcaster. It's sort of a different thing to be able to project energy out. And so I've found when I have an ancient redwood at my back, I'm heard. My prayers, it's just like I can get out in a way that on my own I can't.
It's an amplified send.
Mhm. Really well
And
put. I love that.
and you became a tree climber and you repelled from your work with trees, neither of which I think you wanted to do.
No, I'm afraid of heights. But I had jokingly told David how much I'd like to go up to the canopy someday because there's a lot of life up there. It's amazing. There are fern mats with types of salamanders that live up there and never touch the ground. They just live in those watery mats that accrue soil. So then the opportunity came, and I didn't want to take it at all. David had it all set up, and I'm like, I don't want to go up there. But I felt like a fool because I'd already asked. So I did. I went up there and I was white knuckled and scared the whole time, but it was really thrilling and one of those experiences I'll never forget.
Well, I think no matter who you are or what you're doing, if you go into intuitive work, you have to get over some of your fears.
Yeah.
That's part of it, is finding out that you can walk through your fear and get to a different place.
That was dramatic. I've had other fears I've had to get through. Actually, just being out there for me, there's a lot of wild animals where we live. We have badgers and bobcats and mountain lions. I've run into five. We have
Wow.
elk that are huge, 1,200 pounds with big racks of antlers, and they when they're rutting, they can be dangerous. Lots of black bears, and usually they just run off, but they're still big.
Yeah.
And I when I first started out and I was called to follow the juice and I wanted to go to the forest, I'd try and get my husband to go. I'd get one of my two best friends to go, but they didn't want to go often enough. My husband gardens and he wanted to do that. And my friends were busy writing and teaching. And so I started going alone and I was scared. And I'm not saying people should go alone, but for me, it was magical because I, um, a lot of empathic people pick up a lot of what other people are going through around them. And I was doing that. And so being alone in the woods allowed me to feel sort of my own signature essence.
Well, as soon as you do that, everyone that you're holding energetically goes away. That's
Yeah.
what I liked about the wolves is I could be so present with them that nothing else mattered.
Yeah. So that for me was, and so for people that want to explore this and don't want to feel scared of wild animals, I do have a bear bell and stuff. But it's fine to go with another person, but just separate out uh, 100 feet on the trail and practice some silence for part of the day.
Yep. And with that, we're going to go to break. So, everyone, I'm Julia Griffin, onetrueself.com, onetrueself.com. I've been talking with the lovely Ellen Dee Davidson about trees and the forest and how nature brings us to life. And we're going to talk when we come back about how our connection with nature is an effective way of bonding with our spiritual nature and what the natural world wants us to do for the future. So we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Julia Griffin, and I'm talking with Ellen Dee Davidson about forest bathing, about the presence of nature spirits, of intuition, and of bringing more of the natural world into our worlds for healing, awareness, and other wonderful things. So her book is beautiful, and I recommend that you read it. There's a lot about nature, there's myth, there's science, there's some of everything in there. I was going to ask you, how did you end up with the myths that you put in there? I mean, I love Greek mythology, so it was fun for me. And then I thought of the Druids, and they had tree language from their trees. So there have been these dialogues with trees for a long time.
Yeah, and actually, my maternal line is Celtic. And one of my experiences at a tree was a spontaneous shamanic journey. And I was taken back to meet a Celtic ancestress 800 years ago. And it was very vivid, like a waking dream. And she wanted to reconnect me with some of our uh, lineage nature magic. And that has been happening in all kinds of little and big ways ever since. So,
Probably the people who are listening to this and really getting it have been tree priestesses in past lives.
yeah, there were lots of us all over the world.
Yeah.
There, every culture in the world that has any sort of forest has tree goddesses. And we've always, humanity seems to always have picked up on this deep relationship we have with trees and forests. The trees were here for probably 400 million years to our, I don't know, we're newcomers. They made the earth habitable for us. And even in our language, the word dendrite, when we talk about our nervous system, which looks like a tree,
Yeah.
is the word dendrite comes from the root word that means tree.
I didn't
So
know that. How
yeah.
interesting.
So we're really intimately related and connected to trees. A lot of our DNA is the same, most of it. And I think they're our teachers. They're sort of our evolutionary guides. They got here first. They know more about how to live on the planet than we do in a
Mhm.
really cooperative way. And so the mythology at the time when I was writing the book, which I didn't want to write because I'd done a lot of writing and everything that could happen happened to me. I'd have an award-winning translated book, and then the publisher would go out of business, and the book would go out of print, and it was just getting frustrating. And it's not my favorite thing to sit in front of a computer either. So I'd thrown the towel in, and I'd go out to the trees, and I'd meditate, and I'd see this book. And I kept saying no. And finally I caved, and the book just poured through me. And while it was the fastest book I've ever written, the easiest, when I needed a fact, it would come to me through the radio, TV, a book, a friend, online. I'd all of a sudden the next thing I needed to write would just be in front of me. But at the time I was writing, I was taking an online sadhana with Shamali God of Awakening Women, and um, we were, she does a program of embodied mythology. So we contact the part of ourselves that are represented by different goddesses. And we were studying the goddess Freya, and she's a Norse forest goddess. So there I am wandering around in my forest, and at the same time, in another part of my life, I'm diving into this forest goddess. And I really just felt like she became part of me. And there's other goddesses woven in through the story that just sort of appeared, wanted to be part of it.
Yeah, the Apollo and Daphne story. I loved that when I was about 7 or 8. I would read it over and over for some reason.
Yeah. Well, I think the kinship that we feel with trees is so deep that that story speaks to the part of us that actually can merge with a tree.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you about that. It's really interesting. So one thing you bring up are the Hopi prophecies, and you express them so well. For people who aren't familiar with them, will you go through the 5 phases?
If I can remember, we're in the fifth world of this
Hmm.
prophecy, and it's a time of great change. And the previous world, the fourth world, was destroyed by flood, and that is in mythology
Everything.
everywhere,
Well, we
including the
call it
Bible.
Noah if you want to go into Protestant religion. Yeah.
Yeah. So almost everyone has that in their myth and their history and
Everybody
religion.
does, from what I've seen.
Yeah, I've never heard of any culture. So we're in this time right now where, and I think the prophecy says right now that um, we get transformed through fire. And that does seem to be a lot of what's happening. I mean, even just think of AI, that is like a fire sort of energy. It uses power, it uses energy, fire. But it's a hopeful prophecy because at the same time that this is all happening, they talk about how humanity comes together as rainbow warriors, every race. Um, and we come together in peace to create a different way of being on the world, in the world, with the world, belonging to the world.
And that vibration sort of takes over.
Yeah. And I feel like right now, in a lot of ways, it looks like we're going backwards, but that's the old dying system fighting to maintain dominance and keep that old way alive. Really, that's not what's happening. We're opening up and evolving and coming together with each other and nature in new ways.
And to me, that's part of the shift is that we remember that we need to do that.
Yeah. And one of the things that the trees have been infusing me with in knowing and sometimes in actual words, but is this idea that when we open and receive and listen to nature deeply and observe, she can guide us into restoration that is miraculous. That our scientists are saying, oh, we're passing the tipping points, we're doomed. That's not, and I do get hopeless sometimes when I read that because I follow it. But that's not what I'm hearing when I'm connecting with nature.
Me
What I'm
either.
hearing is the amount of restoration she's capable of is beyond our wildest imaginations and will feel like miracles. And a couple examples I have. One is if you leave a little part of your yard or garden wild, it's amazing what comes back in no time at all. Bees, butterflies, all kinds of flowery weeds, and there's a whole, and it happens so fast. All we have to do is get
And the
out of the
wolves
way.
and the wolves and the whales are smart. There's no way they would be singing the song of creation if they didn't think it would work.
Oh, that's a good point. And there's star connection happening in this too. There's
Yeah,
some kind of starry energy guidance, and I can feel that at the trees. And I,
I can
I
feel it as you're saying it, and I heard right away part of it is the Pleiades.
thank you. That's what I hear too. But
Yeah.
so I want to tell this other story because I have a real life example of how these miracles can happen. And I wrote a children's picture book about it, The Miracle Forest. But in Colombia, this visionary man, way back in the 1970s, wanted to create a sustainable community that could live on their own resources. And he wanted to do it someplace hard. So he picked the savannas where nothing but grass grows. And they couldn't get anything to grow. And eventually they tried tropical Caribbean pine trees. And those pine trees changed the soil was too acidic to grow anything. But those trees could grow. They changed the soil. They added more potable water. They gave the community a way to survive because the resin is used in everything from paint to paper. And then this is so far beyond what they imagined would happen, but shaded in the understory of those trees, rainforests that biologists think hadn't been in the area for 30,000 years, spontaneously regenerated, bringing back 260 species of flora and fauna. They're
Wow.
planting more, they're expanding these forests, they're bringing back rainforests. And it's really hard to bring back a rainforest once it's lost because
Sure.
the topsoil goes. And once that's gone, you can't grow anything. So
Right.
they had a miracle. All they did was their best. They put their best foot forward to work with nature. And then the response was 1,000-fold bigger than anyone could have imagined. And that's what I think could happen everywhere.
I think so too. That's a wonderful way of putting it. And I love that.
Yeah.
So tell me about this. You wrote, Our human survival and that of the trees is twined together as intimately as my body hugging the redwood.
That's how I feel. And I did say previously that we've evolved with the trees. This is
Mhm.
an intimate relationship. It's in so much of our mythology. And and it's interesting because the relationship with nature isn't just, oh, it's so beautiful. And beauty is wonderful and gets us to be more present because we're lured into paying attention. But nature is about the whole cycle. And so are trees, not redwood trees so much, but most trees have a time of in the winter where they don't have any leaves, and then there's buds and blossoms and fruit, and they go through this cycle that's so reflective of our own lives. And we're always changing in this cycle of life. And death and emerging new forms are part of that. And so nature, in all of our myths, if you look, there's always cautions. The forest isn't just this benign place where we're waltzing through. It's an arc. It's just life happening. We'll see in the redwoods, there are fallen trees, and they can be 300 or 400 years old, and they're still foresting. They're dissolving and making homes for all kinds of insects, and then the birds feed on them, and the moss and lichens grow through them, and sometimes redwoods will sprout a whole new tree in an old fallen tree, which is really incredible. But I think being around trees and forests puts us in touch with that organic knowing that we're part of these larger cycles.
Well, too, and as you said, and of course it's certainly true with wolves, your body really wakes up in those situations. It becomes extraordinarily aware.
Yeah. I know. I think that was part of why I enjoy hiking alone so much is because I'm really paying attention. I
Hmm.
need to know if there's another animal or something out there. It's not okay to trip. I have to watch my feet.
Right. It's a body awareness that doesn't really occur any other way.
Yeah, not for me.
So that's something that people can find. I mean, it's also probably better than going to a gym.
Well, and right now, so many people are doing aromatherapy and sound therapy and, different kinds of massage therapy, which is touch. And when we're out in an unspoiled natural environment, which I do think we need to create and preserve more of these and preserve the ones we have, because it should be our human birthright. Everyone should have access to wild places and nature. It brings us into that wild part of ourselves that's
Hmm.
whole, our wholeness. But but nature has all of that, all of these things that we're compartmentalizing and selling are out there. There's sound therapy for sure, and it smells great.
Yeah. And there are other things. I mean, I don't think people realize that when you brush against trees, that you're getting, well, I know this from being an herbalist and growing herbs, but you get all these essential oils and all these different energies that you would never pick up otherwise.
Hmm. And the aerosols, the phytoncides, those are huge immune system boosters.
And so that's where we're going, I think, now in a way, is instead of let's go buy it online, is let's go out in nature and let nature talk to us and let's allow nature to let us feel it. Now, you actually do work as a tour guide with the Redwoods?
Sometimes I'm not, it's illegal, and I love this. It's illegal to charge to take people out into state parks in California. And that to me is lovely because so much of our relationship with nature has been uh, to exploit and extract and to try and make money. And so it's nice to not even have that be part of it. Once in a while, I take out little groups and help people tune in.
Yeah. So people can find you for that. And are your
Hmm.
books online on your website?
Hmm.
And tell them the name of your website.
Oh, it's just www dot my name Ellen and then DEE Davidson.com.
So you can find all those things there. I would say if you read her book, here it is one more time, I would definitely research the myths and this and take some of the scientific information and look it up for yourself because there's this kind of click between your mind and your body when you realize that it's true. I would also say, and you talk about this a lot, I'm sure you'll want to add to this, but we have our spirit and we have our bodies, and our bodies love the woods and love nature.
Hmm.
And why is it important to connect our spirits and our bodies? Let them know because you said it so beautifully.
I don't remember what I said in my book about that, but I do know the Tibetan Buddhists believe that it's a really rare and precious opportunity to get to be here in a human body. And a lot of religions have this thing that you're trying to escape the cycle of reincarnation and
Right.
get, or if you're Christian, you're just trying to get to heaven and ascend or whatever. And I don't think that. I think that this is just an amazing experience to have all the senses and be in a body and be part of life evolving. And so the more of our essence, our spirit, our soul, our heart energy we can bring into our body to be present here, not
It's an
only will that
enormous gift.
it's bliss, and what we'll create with more of us doing that will be we really could this I mean all those mythologies and religions about how this was a garden, it can be again.
Yeah, it can be. And there doesn't have to be any more bad weather or winters or anything. It can just be wonderful. I was thinking that in alchemy, I think they say that all the ascended masters wish that they could do this. Because if you don't have a body, you can't move anything. You can't
Mhm.
feel this.
Mhm. You can't
And so,
smell.
Right. Mhm.
or taste.
That's what I mean. So
Yeah.
it can be really challenging, but it can be wonderful too. And I really suspect our lifeline should be at least 2 or 3 times what it is.
Yeah, probably. We're pretty worn down with stress. I don't, w- we've become so mechanized and it's very hard on us.
It really is. All the things that we think are making so easy by using electronics are really very stressful on the body, I think.
hmm I know, and that's why, especially for kids who are growing up with computers and AI and all of this technology, it's so important for them to spend time outside without being plugged in to keep any sort of balance.
Right. And that's really a huge gift that we do that. So you have a really neat story about David. We forgot to tell them about the archangels, that he has angels that told him to do this. But you gave him a donation and he immediately got in touch with you.
Yeah, $25, so it wasn't much. But he says the angels guide everything he does. When he was first given his mission, they would he would see they weren't actually there, but these headlights shining in his room, and they'd wake him up at 3 in the morning, and he'd write pages and pages of his assignment down, and he's still following that assignment. He was so laughed at when they first told him to clone these trees. People said it was impossible, and why are you doing it? And he didn't have any money. He didn't have a scientific background or any big political connections, but it's all happening.
He had an open heart,
Yeah, he had an open heart and
but it
still
is all
does.
happening for him now.
It's all happening. Those trees are all over the world in libraries in Wales and New Zealand and Germany and Ireland and uh, in Washington State. And it's great. And now it's clear that this is important because with the floods and the fires and some of these trees, we're losing them. And so we do want to be able to preserve the genetics and restore those forests in a changing climate.
So here's an interesting thing is that when you're on your path and you're moving through your Dharma or what you came here to do, there's absolutely no reason for someone to get in touch with her over $25 donation. But you obviously had some soul connection through time that brought you together at a particular point in time and space, and you just clicked.
Well, it's so miraculous for me because this isn't the only situation like that. I'm having quite a number of them. And here I am. I'm involved with my family. I have a few friends, but I'm kind of a hermit. And I'm out there hanging out with the trees, and people come find me. And that's the magic. It's not me doing it. The
No.
trees are connecting
Hmm.
people.
Well, there's a universal connection.
hmm And the angels and all of the
Yeah.
things the trees connect to because they are so multidimensional.
Because it is a multi-dimensional universe. It's
Yeah.
just somehow it kind of gets squished, would be the best way I could say it. But that's not what it is.
And I do want to say how I ended up in this kind of magical position in life was I did listen to the guidance of my heart because when I first started going to the trees, my husband and my best friend's husband would go, "Is Ellen going to the tree again today?" And they'd laugh at me. And I felt like a fool. Like, why do I even want to do this? And but I did. And so when we let ourselves do those kind of crazy things that are our deepest heart impulses, we are following spirit and we have no idea where that's going to lead.
Right. I mean, no one believed me when I said the wolves would talk to me, but they never told me anything that wasn't true. So after a while, people started listening.
I love that.
They always knew what was going to happen and how it was going to happen and different things like that. And it's like that was one way that I became a lot more deeply involved with it was because it proved itself again and again. But like you, a lot of things that they told me, it took years before the research came to light.
Yeah.
Like they
I,
would tell me, animals can see in color. We mostly see things in dark, in this really vivid blue color if they're alive. We can see grass, but it's not green like it is to you. But I can remember riding a horse and saying to myself, let's go over the white jump. And the horse said, which one, the little one or the big one? So I knew the horse could see white.
Amazing.
I know.
Yeah.
Now they know that animals can see color, but this was just so far beyond, before that.
I have a story to share. The trees told me that they could tell the difference between, I think it was red and green. And I thought, that's crazy.
Right. I would always go like, right. Yeah.
Yeah, like, okay, you could see, if I'm wearing a red shirt or a green shirt today, that's crazy. And it turns out they have photosensitivity receptors and they can distinguish color, evolved to do that for survival reasons.
So we're coming to the end, but everyone who's listening, we're trying to open up a world in nature that's so beautiful, so wild, and so full of knowledge that probably all of it will be proven later, but we'll have new knowledge. But it's a place you can go to get the information you need to balance yourself with the earth and this new energy that's coming in. And Ellen, thank you so, so much for sharing it with us today. And I think you should all go to her website and buy her book. And you can go to my website. I listed that earlier. And you can sign up for my newsletter. And I usually write a newsletter every couple of weeks. So I think that's about it. Is there anything you wanted to add?
No, thank you for having me. This was really fun.
It was so fun. So namaste, everybody. I bow before the divine in you. And thank you, Ellen. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you for listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Julia Griffin to master a higher frequency for a new state of mind. Join us next time as Julia takes us deeper into the memory of the moments of light where transcendence and enlightenment emerge. The memory of the jewel of consciousness is always lived within you to tap into waves of energy and create huge changes by imagining the beauty of the vision and desires that are hidden in the heart. Learn to find your way back to nature, beauty, and your own heart, which holds the secrets of your existence and future. To discover more about Julia's adventures, animal communication, and the teachings she brings to every show, visit onetrueself.com. That's onetrueself.com. That's ONE, trueself.com.